How the fuck do you write so many books so fast?
The way that I work, I try to get out there and I try to get 6 pages a day. So with a book like End of Watch, and when I'm working, I work every day, 3-4 hours, and I try to get those 6 pages and I try to get them fairly clean. So if the manuscript is, let's say, 360 pages long, that's basically 2 months' work. It's concentrated, but it's but that's assuming that it goes well.
And you do hit 6 pages a day?
I usually do.
In this segment, we will look further to Stephen King's writing style, his thoughts on writing, and the settings used in his books. As for Stephen King's writing style, he is famous for a few reasons, and they are: one is dimensional. His writing is unique and dimensional. The characters he portrays are mostly unique and flawed. For example, Pennywise in It, Carrie in Carrie, Warden Norton in Shawshank Redemption, and Jack Torrance in The Shining. Moving on to his thoughts on writing, there is a book titled On Writing, a Memoir of the Craft was published in 2000, which describes his experiences as a writer and his advice for aspiring writers. In this book, he said, "This is how it was for me. That is all. A disjointed growth process in which ambition, desire, luck, and little talent all played a part." When he was a little boy, he always imagined himself as someone else. For example, he sees himself as a Ringling Brothers circus strongboy. He also began to write his own stories, where he described it as imitation preceded creation. Stephen King already published 58 novels, and some of them are Full Dark No Stars, Misery, and Sleeping Beauties. King mentioned about West Broad Street, a huge tangled wilderness area, which turns up in his books and stories again and again under a variety of names. For example, the kids in It named it as Barren. However, he and his brother Dave named it as Jungle. Next, we will discuss on the settings used in It, Carrie, Shawshank Redemption, and The Shining. In It, there is a house on 29th Neighbourhood Street in Derry, which is a fictional town. In Carrie, the setting was located at Chamberlain, Maine, which then turns out to be a ghost town. The setting for Shawshank Redemption is in the prison where Andy and Red were locked to serve their sentence. Lastly, in The Shining, the setting is the Overlook Hotel in Colorado, which turns out to be the most scary fictional building ever.
Why we should read Stephen King? Stephen King is a horror king that emphasizes the horror.
The wind.
And the dark side of human being.
There are other people out there like me who can do what I can do.
Stephen King's books are always interesting because of his good writing styles in describing the supernatural activities. Quote, monsters are real and ghosts too. They live inside you and sometimes they win. King chose conflicts and suspense as the major issues in his books. The characters in his novels react to the antagonist by the help of adrenaline. The horror novel It is one of King's successful horror novels. The villain in the novel It is not a human being but a creature living on the sewers that will mutilate children every 27 years. The only way to defeat the non-human creatures like Pennywise in It is by going against their own fear. Human beings can also be as scary and dark in King's creations, such as Jack Torrance in The Shining and George Stark in The Dark. King emphasized how the psychological changes occurred is due to the supernatural beings, and for Carrie, a superpower. The Shining shows how aggressive Torrance was after the supernatural beings took over him in the Overlook Hotel. The Shining 1980, directed by Stanley Kubrick. However, Stephen King doesn't like this version. He said so once in an interview.
Did you like Kubrick's film of The Shining?
No. Cold. I'm not a cold guy. I mean, I think one of the things that people relate to in my books is there's a warmth, there's a reaching out and saying to the reader, I want you to be a part of this. And with Kubrick's The Shining, I felt that it was very cold.
He writes about what people are anxious about, example clowns in It, loves to scare the readers, and he even looked at his own list of phobias to create a genuinely scary stories. For examples about spiders, elevator, on an airplane, and in the dark. King's novel seems real because his writings reflect how he was struggling to not be like his dad. He wrote out of his inner feelings and sometimes while being drunk.
Symbolism, a figure of speech where an object, person, or situation has another meaning other than its literal meaning. In his book entitled Carrie, he uses the element blood as a symbol of God's curses on women. In this book, he also used personifications of characters with animal behavior. For example, the girls in the locker room are swans. Carrie's mom is described as frog squatting in the yard and grinning and drooling right down her chin. When Sue ran from the fire, she moans like an animal in a trap. There are also symbolism of blood, water, and fire. In Christian theology, God purified the sinners by blood, water, and fire. These elements of purifier are demonstrated in the book. Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption is a short story written by Stephen King. It tells the story about Andy Dufresne, who was sent to prison for killing his wife. However, only Andy knows he didn't commit the crimes. In prison, he forms friendship with fellow prisoners. He also experiences brutality of prison life. In the end, he was able to escape the prison with his own hand. In the short story, Rock Hammer symbolizes Andy's commitment to escape from the prison. The rock hammer also allows him to continue his hobby and gives a sense of normality in the prison. It also gives Andy a sense of accomplishment when he displays the collections of the polished rock on the windowsill. It is a 1986 horror novel by American author Stephen King. The story follows the experiences of 7 children as they are terrorized by an entity that exploits the fears and phobias of its victims to disguise itself while hunting its prey. The most iconic symbol is the red balloon used by the Pennywise. Balloon is not harmful, but it is an illusion to lure victims to their death. The man in the black suit recounts the tale of Gary, a 9-year-old boy whose brother has died due to a bee sting. One day, Gary goes out fishing and he discovers a man with burning eyes looming over him, dressed in a black 3-piece suit. According to the novel, the devil is wearing a black suit. Black is known as the color of darkness, sad, and evil. Black suit also symbolizes death because it is the attire for funeral.
Number 1, show, don't tell. For example, in the book I'm working on now, there's a spooky monster, and instead of describing it, I drew it. Number 2, I cannot emphasize the importance of rewriting. I've been working on it for a few weeks, still working on the opening for my next book. Number 3, to develop as a writer, you must be reading books constantly. Here are a few suggestions: The Shining, Carrie, Salem's Lot, Pet Sematary, Dolores Claiborne, The Green Mile, Under the Dome. You get the idea.